General Sarah Chen stood in the command center, watching the red dots on her screen. Each dot was a hegemony ship in orbit above Earth. 3 years ago, she would have called them visitors. Now she called them murderers. The underground bunker felt cold despite the heating systems. Mountain rocks surrounded them on all sides, protecting what remained of North American command from the alien weapons above. Sarah touched the scar on her left cheek, a reminder of the day Denver burned. The day everything changed. "General, we have movement in Sector 7, Lieutenant Martinez called from his station. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the fear underneath. They all carried that fear now. It lived in their bones after watching cities turn to glass. Sarah walked to his console. The screen showed thermal readings from the surface. "How many ships?" 12 destroyers, ma'am." "Same pattern as before?" Sarah nodded. The aliens always used the same tactics. 12 ships would position themselves above a target area. Then they would fire their plasma weapons until nothing remained but melted rock and ash. Clean, efficient, final. Any survivors in that sector? Underground communities in old subway tunnels? Maybe 10,000 people. 10,000. Sarah remembered when losing 10,000 people would have been a tragedy that stopped the world. Now it was just another day. Another red mark on the casualty reports. "Send the evacuation signal," she ordered. "Tell them to go deeper." Martinez typed commands into his keyboard. Deep beneath major cities around the world, emergency broadcasts would reach hidden communities. Most would have enough time to escape. Some would not. That was the mathematics of survival now. Sarah returned to the main display. The holographic Earth showed damage in real time. Red zones marked areas where nothing lived anymore. Yellow zones marked areas under current attack. Green zones showed places still safe. The planet looked like it had a disease, with more red appearing every day. Colonel James Murphy joined her at the display. His hair had gone completely gray in the past year. "The European bunkers report similar movement," he said quietly. "Looks like another coordinated strike." Sarah studied the patterns. The hegemony was methodical. They never rushed. Why would they? Humans could not reach their ships. Human weapons could barely scratch their armor. From their perspective, this was not war. This was pest control. "What is the current count?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. 3.2 billion confirmed dead, Murphy replied. "Another 500 million missing and presumed dead. 3 billion people." Sarah tried to imagine that number, but human minds were not built for such scale. She could picture 1,000 faces, maybe 10,000. But 3 billion was just a number that kept growing. The hegemony had made first contact 4 years ago. Their ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. Beautiful vessels that looked like silver teardrops against the stars. Humanity had celebrated. Finally, proof that they were not alone in the universe. The celebration lasted exactly 47 minutes. The alien transmission was simple. They called themselves the Hegemony, a coalition of 6 species that maintained order in this part of the galaxy. They had studied human broadcasts for decades. They had watched human wars, human pollution, human expansion. Their conclusion was clear. Humanity was a contamination risk. The transmission continued with clinical precision. Humans bred too quickly. They consumed resources without thought for consequences. They created weapons designed to kill their own species. They were too unpredictable, too violent, too dangerous to be allowed into galactic civilization. The solution was equally clinical. Complete sterilization of Earth, every human eliminated. The planet would be cleansed and prepared for a more suitable species. But the hegemony was not without mercy. They would give humanity time to understand their fate. 30 days to prepare for extinction. Some humans could surrender and be relocated to work camps on distant worlds. The rest would die quickly and painlessly. Sarah remembered watching that broadcast with her family. Her daughter Lisa had been home from college. Her son Mark had brought his new girlfriend for dinner. They all sat around the television, trying to understand what they had just heard. 30 days later, the bombardment began. The first targets were obvious. Military bases, government centers, nuclear facilities. The aliens destroyed anything that could threaten their ships or disrupt their plan. But they were careful. Surgical strikes that eliminated threats without damaging the planet itself. Phase 2 targeted population centers. New York vanished in a column of superheated plasma. London became a crater of melted stone. Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Mumbai. One by one, the great cities of Earth died. Millions of people turned to ash in seconds. Governments collapsed. Communication networks failed. Panic spread faster than any disease. Some people fought, most ran. All of them learned that there was nowhere to hide from enemies in orbit. But some humans had prepared for this possibility. Deep bunkers built during the Cold War became sanctuaries. Military installations carved into mountains became command centers. Underground bases that officially did not exist became humanity's last hope. Sarah had been a colonel then, stationed at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs. When the bombardment started, she led 300 people into the mountain tunnels of Cheyenne Mountain. That was 3 years ago. Now she commanded what remained of organized human resistance from the same tunnels. "General, incoming priority transmission from Global Command," Martinez announced. Sarah walked to the communication station. The screen showed Admiral Rebecca Torres, head of what remained of the United Nations military forces. Her face appeared on a secured channel that bounced signals through a network of hidden satellites. "Sarah, we need to talk," Torres said. Her expression was grim even by current standards. "Something has changed." "What kind of change?" "The hegemony sent another broadcast an hour ago. They are moving to final phase. Complete extermination of all remaining humans within 60 days. Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. "What triggered the acceleration?" "Unknown." "But Sarah..." Torres paused, looking directly into the camera. "The President has authorized Protocol 7. Sarah's blood stopped moving. Protocol 7 was a name whispered in the deepest levels of command. It referred to programs that existed in files marked with black borders, research that was deemed too dangerous even for a species that had built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their planet a dozen times over. "Admiral, are you certain?" "The authorization came through an hour ago. All Pandora facilities are being activated simultaneously. The leash is coming off, Sarah." Sarah looked around the command center. Her staff continued their work, unaware that everything was about to change. They thought they were fighting a losing war against superior technology. They had no idea what their own species was truly capable of when survival was at stake. "What are my orders?" Sarah asked. "Prepare your people. In 72 hours, the war changes completely. The aliens think they know what humanity is. They are about to learn they were wrong." The transmission ended. Sarah stood in silence, watching her staff monitor alien movements that would soon be irrelevant. For 3 years, humanity had fought like the primitive species the hegemony believed them to be. They had used conventional weapons against superior technology. They had followed rules of war that their enemies ignored. They had held back their most terrible capabilities, hoping diplomacy might still work. 3 billion dead had finally answered that question. Sarah walked back to the main display. The red zone seemed to pulse like wounds, but soon the colors would change. Soon the hegemony would discover what humans had been keeping locked away in the dark corners of their world. The beasts were about to wake up. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through corridors that did not exist on any official map. The Pandora facility beneath the Nevada desert was one of 13 such installations around the world. For 40 years, it had been humanity's most closely guarded secret. Now it would become their salvation. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on concrete walls as Elena made her way to Laboratory Complex 7. Her security badge showed clearance levels that only 200 people on Earth possessed. Behind the steel doors lay research that had been deemed too dangerous for a species already capable of destroying itself. Elena's assistant, Dr. Marcus Webb, fell into step beside her. His face was pale despite years of working in these underground chambers. "The activation codes came through 20 minutes ago," he said. "All department heads are requesting immediate briefings. Tell them to prepare for full deployment in 60 hours, Elena replied. No safety protocols, no testing phases, no ethical reviews. Marcus stopped walking. In the 3 years since the invasion began, they had received many desperate orders. But this was different. This was the abandonment of everything that separated human science from human destruction. "Elena, some of these projects, we sealed them for good reasons." Elena turned to face him. Her eyes held the weight of 3 billion dead. "Marcus, do you know what the hegemony calls us in their communications?" "Primitive biologicals." "Exactly. They think we are simple creatures with basic tools. They believe our technology is crude because we still use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. They have no idea what we chose not to use." Elena continued walking toward the laboratory complex. The corridors grew wider as they approached the main research areas. Blast doors designed to contain nuclear explosions stood open for the first time in decades. Warning signs in 12 languages covered every surface. They entered a chamber the size of an aircraft hangar. Workstations filled the space, each one dedicated to a different aspect of humanity's darkest scientific achievements. For 40 years, the brightest minds on Earth had worked here in secret, not to create weapons for human wars, but to solve problems that might threaten the entire species. What if aliens invaded? What if normal weapons were not enough? What if humanity faced extinction? The answers to those questions filled the laboratory around them. At Station Alpha, Dr. Sarah Kim worked on biological weapons that could adapt and evolve in real time. The original research had begun during the Cold War, when both sides wanted viruses that could target specific genetic markers. But Kim's team had gone further. They had created organisms that could rewrite their own genetic code based on the biology of their targets. How long until deployment? Elena asked. 6 hours for the basic strains, Kim replied without looking up from her microscope. 48 hours for the adaptive variants. The beauty is that we do not need to know alien physiology. The organisms will figure it out themselves. Elena nodded and moved to Station Beta. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's team worked on nanotechnology that made current computer chips look like stone tools. Machines the size of molecules that could reproduce themselves and follow complex programming. During peacetime, such technology was banned by international treaty. It could consume entire ecosystems if it malfunctioned. Status report, Doctor. Manufacturing is already underway, Tanaka said. We have 17 different deployment methods ready. Atmospheric release, water contamination, direct contact through modified human carriers. The nanobots can infiltrate any technology and rewrite it from the inside. What about friendly fire prevention? All Earth-based technology will be automatically protected. Anything else? Tanaka smiled without humor. Anything else becomes raw material. Elena moved through the laboratory, checking on projects that existed in nightmares. At Station Gamma, they were preparing AI systems with no ethical constraints and no safety limits. At Station Delta, they worked on genetic modifications that could turn ordinary humans into living weapons. But the most secret research happened in Sublevel 5. Elena took an elevator that required 3 different keycards and a retinal scan. The descent felt endless. 500 feet below the main laboratory, behind walls designed to contain nuclear blasts, lay humanity's greatest shame and greatest hope. The elevator doors opened to reveal Dr. James Harrison, head of the Metamorphosis Project. His hair had gone white during his years underground. His eyes held the same haunted look shared by everyone who worked at these depths. Elena, I was hoping you would come personally, Harrison said. The authorization for full deployment. Are you certain? 3 billion dead, James. The hegemony moves to final phase in 60 days. We are out of time for moral considerations. Harrison nodded slowly. He led her through another series of security doors into a chamber that looked more like a medical facility than a weapons laboratory. Dozens of surgical tables filled the space. Monitoring equipment covered the walls. The air smelled of antiseptic and something else. Something organic and wrong. How many volunteers do we have? Elena asked. 2,000 in this facility alone. Another 15,000 across all Pandora sites. All military personnel. All volunteers. All understand they will never be fully human again. Elena looked at the surgical tables. In 60 hours, ordinary soldiers would lie on those tables as human beings. They would wake up as something else. Something designed for a single purpose, to hunt and kill beings that thought themselves superior to humanity. Show me the specifications. Harrison activated a holographic display. The human form appeared in blue light, then began to change. Bones became denser and harder. Muscles grew stronger and more efficient. Organs were replaced with synthetic alternatives that could function in environments that would kill normal humans. But the real changes were harder to see. Neural implants that could interface directly with any computer system. Sensory modifications that could detect heat, electrical fields, and chemical signatures. Weapons built into the body itself. They will retain human intelligence and personality, Harrison explained. But their physical capabilities will be beyond anything the galaxy has seen. Strength, speed, endurance, reaction time, all enhanced to theoretical limits. And the psychological effects? Harrison paused. Unknown. We have run simulations, but this level of modification has never been attempted. They may lose some emotional responses. They may develop new forms of aggression. We simply do not know. Elena studied the hologram. The figure looked human at first glance, but something was wrong with its proportions. Too tall, too lean, muscles that moved in slightly unnatural ways. It was humanity perfected for violence. How long for the modifications? 72 hours per subject. But Elena, once we begin this process, there is no reversing it. These people will never return to normal human society. They will be living weapons for the rest of their lives. Elena thought about the orbital bombardments, about cities turned to glass, about 3 billion people who would never see another sunrise, about the hegemony's final message promising complete extinction within 60 days. Begin immediately, she ordered. All volunteers. Full modifications. Elena left Sublevel 5 and returned to the main laboratory. Around her, humanity's darkest science prepared to emerge from the shadows. For decades, Earth's governments had chosen restraint. They had kept their most terrible weapons locked away, hoping they would never be needed. The hegemony had made that choice for them. Elena activated the communication system that connected all 13 Pandora facilities. Her voice would reach similar laboratories under the Swiss Alps, beneath the Australian outback, in abandoned mines across Siberia. Everywhere, humans had built facilities to house research too dangerous for daylight. "This is Pandora Prime to all facilities," she announced. "Protocol 7 is now active. All projects are authorized for immediate deployment. No safety restrictions, no testing delays, no moral limitations." She paused, looking around at the scientists who had spent their careers creating humanity's nightmares. "The leash is off. Release the beasts." Around the world, steel doors opened for the first time in decades. Warning lights flashed in chambers that housed horrors beyond imagination. Scientists who had spent years asking what if finally got their chance to provide answers. The hegemony thought they were fighting primitive biologicals with crude technology. In 72 hours, they would discover what humans were capable of when they stopped holding back. The galaxy was about to learn why some species chose restraint. Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Third Fleet studied the readings from his ship's sensors with growing confusion. Massive energy signatures were appearing across the human homeworld. Installations that had shown no activity for years were suddenly broadcasting on frequencies his equipment could barely detect. "Navigation officer, confirm these readings," Zethkar ordered. His forearms moved across the control interface with practiced efficiency. As a member of the Karathi species, he had served the hegemony for 30 cycles. He had overseen the cleansing of 7 different worlds. Never had he encountered readings like these. "Confirmed, Commander," the navigation officer replied. 47 major energy sources have activated in the past 6 time units. Power levels are unexpected. Zethkar's translator struggled with the navigation officer's tone. The device was calibrated for standard hegemony languages, but it seemed to convey something like surprise. Perhaps even concern. "Define unexpected. The energy outputs exceed our initial estimates of human technological capability by factors of 10 to 50, Zethkar felt his secondary hearts begin beating faster. In 30 cycles of service, he had learned that surprises were dangerous. Species marked for cleansing were not supposed to have capabilities that exceeded hegemony estimates. Tactical analysis. "Are these defensive installations?" "Unknown, Commander. The energy signatures do not match any known weapon systems. They appear to be manufacturing centers. Zethkar accessed the human files in his ship's database. According to hegemony intelligence, human manufacturing was primitive. Chemical processes and crude assembly techniques. Nothing that should require such massive energy expenditures. Continue monitoring. Alert all fleet elements to maintain safe distance from planetary surface." Zethkar returned to his command chamber and activated the communication array. His holographic image would appear before Fleet Admiral Kestar aboard the Hegemony flagship. The admiral belonged to the Nexari species, beings whose cold logic made them ideal military commanders. "Commander Zethkar reporting unusual activity on the human homeworld," he began, requesting guidance on how to proceed. Admiral Kessatar's image materialized in return. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow in the dim lighting of her command chamber. "Explain these activities." "Unknown facilities have activated across the planet. Energy signatures suggest advanced manufacturing capabilities far beyond our initial assessments of human technology. The Admiral's expression did not change. Nixari rarely showed emotion, but Zethkar could see calculation behind her eyes. Have humans demonstrated any new weapons capabilities? Negative. All human resistance continues to follow expected patterns. Primitive projectile weapons, basic explosive devices, no threat to fleet operations. Then continue with scheduled cleansing operations. Eliminate remaining population centers as planned. The transmission ended. Zethkar returned to his command station, but unease continued to grow in his mind. 30 cycles of experience had taught him to trust his instincts. Something was wrong with this cleansing operation. 12 hours later, Zethkar understood why. The first sign was a minor atmospheric disturbance in Sector 15. His ship's sensors detected a small object entering Earth's atmosphere, probably debris from destroyed orbital installations. The object was too small to threaten hegemony vessels, but when the object reached the surface, it began to multiply. Commander, we are detecting unusual biological activity in the impact zone, his science officer reported. Rapid cellular reproduction at microscopic level. Elaborate. Something is spreading from the impact site. Growth rate exceeds any known biological process. The affected area is expanding by several kilometers per time unit. Zethkar studied the sensor readings. A dark stain was spreading across the landscape like spilled ink. But this was not destruction. This was construction. Something was building itself out of raw materials on the planet's surface. Is it affecting human settlements? Negative. The organism appears to be avoiding all human life signs. But Commander, the science officer paused. It is consuming all metallic materials in its path, including debris from our previous bombardments. Before Zethkar could respond, similar reports began arriving from across the planet. Objects were falling from orbit at 17 different locations. At each site, the same rapid expansion was occurring. Something was growing across Earth's surface, consuming everything except human life. All ships maintain maximum altitude, Zethkar ordered. Do not approach planetary surface until we understand this phenomenon. But the phenomenon was already spreading beyond the planet's surface. Zethkar's ship detected the first microscopic particles in its air. Recycling system 6 hours after the surface impacts. Tiny objects too small to see were entering through the ship's atmospheric processors. The particles seemed harmless. They did not register as threats on any security system. That changed when they reached the ship's computer networks. Commander, we are experiencing system malfunctions throughout the ship, his engineering officer announced. Navigation, weapons, life support all showing intermittent failures. Cause? Unknown. The malfunctions appear to be spreading through our computer networks, as if something is rewriting our programming from the inside. Zethkar felt ice form in his bloodstream. He activated emergency communications to contact the rest of his fleet. Half of his ships reported similar malfunctions. The other half were not responding to communications at all. Emergency ascent to maximum safe distance, he ordered. All ships withdraw from planetary vicinity immediately. But it was already too late. Zethkar watched his control panels flicker and die one by one. Emergency lighting activated as primary power systems failed. His ship's mighty engines, which could propel the vessel between star systems, suddenly went silent. Through his observation windows, he could see other hegemony ships drifting dark and powerless in orbit. Whatever was infecting their systems had spread through the entire fleet in a matter of hours. Commander, incoming transmission from the surface, his communications officer reported using emergency backup systems. Display transmission. The image that appeared was a human female in military uniform. Her face was marked by scars, but her eyes held something that made Zethkar's translator struggle to find appropriate words. The closest approximation was predatory satisfaction. Hegemony forces, this is General Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command, the human said. We are transmitting on your emergency frequencies because we control your primary communications now. Zethkar tried to respond, but his communication systems were not functioning. For 3 years, you have hunted us like animals, the human continued. You have killed 3 billion of our people. You have reduced our cities to ash. You believed we were primitive creatures with crude technology. The human's expression changed. The predatory look intensified. You were wrong. Images began appearing on Zethkar's screens, views of Earth's surface that should have been impossible. His ship's sensors were offline, but somehow the humans were feeding data directly into his displays. The dark stains he had observed were revealed to be vast manufacturing complexes, structures that had grown from nothing in a matter of hours, assembling themselves from raw materials at the molecular level. But these were not human settlements. They were weapons factories operating at a scale that defied comprehension. "What you are seeing is the result of 40 years of research," the human general explained. "Research into technologies too dangerous for normal use. Nanotechnology that can consume and rebuild matter at the atomic level. Artificial intelligence systems with no ethical constraints. Biological weapons that adapt to target any form of life." More images appeared. Zethkar saw human soldiers, but they were wrong somehow. Too tall, too strong, moving in ways that seemed unnatural. Their eyes reflected light like predatory animals. Weapons grew from their arms like organic extensions of their bodies. "We call them our Wraith units," the general said. "Volunteers who gave up their humanity to become living weapons. They are currently boarding your ships through airlocks you did not know you had opened." Zethkar heard sounds from the corridors outside his command chamber, sounds of metal being torn apart, sounds of his crew screaming in languages his translator could not process. "You wanted to cleanse Earth of human contamination," the general continued, "but you misunderstood what humans are. We are not just another primitive species. We are the result of 4 billion years of evolution shaped by constant warfare. We are predators who learn to hunt other predators. We are the monsters that other monsters have nightmares about." The sounds in the corridors were getting closer. "The difference between humans and every other species you have cleansed is simple," the general said. "When faced with extinction, they fought to preserve what they were. Humans choose to become something worse than their enemies." Zethkar's command chamber doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris, he saw shapes that might have been human once. Now they were something else. Something designed for killing. "Welcome to Earth," the general's voice continued from his damaged speakers. "Enjoy your stay." The last thing Zethkar saw was the reflection of his own terror in the eyes of humanity's monsters. Captain Maria Santos had been human once. Now she stood 7 feet tall with bones like titanium and muscles that could crush steel. Her eyes glowed with a soft blue light from the optical enhancements that let her see in 17 different spectrums. When she smiled, her teeth were razor-sharp ceramics designed to bite through alien armor. She was beautiful and terrible, and she was exactly what humanity needed. Maria led Alpha Team through the corridors of the Hegemony flagship. Her enhanced senses detected 47 alien crew members still alive on this level. Their fear scent filled the air like smoke. They had never encountered anything like her. In all their cycles of cleansing primitive worlds, they had never faced predators who hunted back. "Contact ahead," whispered Sergeant Davis through the neural link they all shared. Davis had volunteered for modifications that replaced half his brain with quantum processors. He could hack alien computer systems just by touching them. 12 hostiles in the navigation chamber. Maria's enhanced hearing picked up alien voices through the bulkhead. Her translator implants identified them as Korathi, a 4-armed species that considered themselves excellent warriors. They were about to learn they were wrong. "Rodriguez, take point," Maria ordered. "Chen, cover the rear exit." Everyone else standard sweep pattern. Rodriguez had chosen the most extreme modifications. His arms could extend razor-sharp blades from hidden sheaths in his forearms. His spine contained a flexible weapon system that could fire projectiles in any direction. He looked like a human nightmare given form. They entered the navigation chamber like shadows made of death. The aliens never had a chance to scream. 12 minutes later, Maria stood among the bodies and accessed the ship's navigation computer. The data files revealed the true scope of the Hegemony fleet. 3,000 ships spread across this star system, another 7,000 in neighboring systems, all prepared to finish the cleansing of Earth. But the Hegemony had made a critical error. They had brought their entire fleet within range of Earth's new weapons. "Command, this is Alpha Team," Maria transmitted. "Flagship secured. Navigation data acquired. Ready for Phase 2. General Chen's voice crackled through her implants. "Confirmed, Alpha Team. All teams report successful boarding actions. Initiating Ghost Fleet launch in 30 minutes. Maria smiled her predator's smile. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's crown jewel, ships built in secret on the dark side of the moon using technology reverse-engineered from captured alien vessels. But where alien engineers had built for efficiency and safety, human engineers had built for pure destruction. She made her way to the flagship's observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see Earth floating like a blue marble against the stars. But the planet was changing. The dark manufacturing complexes had spread across entire continents. The atmospheric processors were working at maximum capacity, filling the air with microscopic nanobots programmed to target anything not tagged with human genetic markers. Earth was becoming a weapon. Suddenly, space around the planet began to shimmer. The moon seemed to split apart as massive doors opened in its surface. The hidden shipyards that humanity had spent 3 years building in absolute secrecy were finally revealed. Ships began emerging from the lunar installations. But these were not the crude vessels the hegemony expected from humans. These were nightmares of engineering that borrowed alien technology and improved it with human innovation. No safety limits, no ethical constraints. Pure predatory efficiency. The Ghost Fleet numbered only 300 ships compared to the hegemony's 3,000. But numbers meant nothing when the enemy could not fight back. Maria watched the first wave of human ships engage hegemony vessels near Mars. The alien ships tried to return fire, but their weapons would not respond. The nanobots had infected every system. Their engines failed. Their shields collapsed. They drifted helpless in space, while human ships closed in for the kill. But Maria's favorite part was watching the hegemony crews discover what had been done to their ships while they slept. Every vessel in the alien fleet had been infected with more than just nanobots. The microscopic machines had spent days rebuilding internal systems. Corridors now led to hidden chambers filled with biological weapons tailored to each species. Ventilation systems had been modified to deploy airborne viruses that targeted alien DNA, while ignoring human genetic patterns. Food and water supplies had been contaminated with organisms that would begin eating their hosts from the inside. Most terrifying of all, the nanobots had built new life forms inside the ships, creatures that looked like twisted combinations of Earth predators and alien anatomy. They waited in hidden spaces until activated by remote signal. Maria activated that signal now. Across the hegemony fleet, screaming began. Through her enhanced hearing, Maria could detect the sounds of panic echoing through alien ships. Creatures that should not exist were hunting crews through corridors they thought they knew. Biological weapons designed by human scientists were being deployed in atmosphere systems. The nanobots were turning the ships themselves into weapons against their own crews. "Maria, we have movement on Earth's surface," Sergeant Davis reported. "Looks like the defensive installations are coming online." Maria turned her attention to the planet below. Across Earth's continents, structures were rising from the ground. Massive weapons platforms that had been built underground and were now surfacing like metal mountains. Each installation was the size of a city and packed with weapons that made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. The hegemony had orbital superiority for 3 years. Now Earth was taking it back. The planetary defense grid opened fire simultaneously. Beams of energy that could crack planets reached out toward alien ships with casual precision. Point defense systems that could track a grain of sand in orbit began intercepting every projectile. The aliens tried to fire, but the most beautiful sight was the swarms. Millions of microscopic drones launched from hidden facilities across Earth. Each drone was smaller than an insect but carried enough destructive power to disable a spacecraft. They moved in coordinated clouds that flowed through space like living things. No alien point defense system could target something so small and numerous. The swarms reached the hegemony fleet and began their work. They slipped through hull breaches created by previous attacks. They infiltrated atmospheric systems. They found crew members and attached themselves like metallic parasites. Within minutes, alien crew members across the fleet began reporting that their equipment was malfunctioning. Tools that had worked for cycles suddenly refused to function. Weapons would not fire. Environmental suits failed. Even basic communication devices stopped working. The nanodrones were rewriting everything they touched, turning it against its users. Maria watched a hegemony battleship try to retreat toward the outer system. Its engines fired briefly, then went silent. The ship began spinning as its attitude thrusters fired randomly. Through her enhanced vision, she could see alien crew members abandoning their posts and fleeing toward escape pods. But the escape pods would not launch. The nanobots had seen to that. "Command, this is Reconnaissance Team Delta." A new voice crackled through Maria's implants. "We have visual on hegemony reinforcement fleets approaching from the outer system. Estimated strength, 4,000 ships. Maria felt excitement rather than fear. The Ghost Fleet had been designed to fight outnumbered. Human engineers had studied every successful predator species on Earth and incorporated their hunting strategies into ship design, pack tactics, ambush predation, coordinated attacks that overwhelmed larger prey. All Ghost Fleet units initiate Wolfpack Protocol, General Chen ordered. Show them how humans learn to hunt mammoths. Maria's enhanced senses could detect the formation changes as human ships reorganized themselves into hunting groups. Each pack contained ships with different capabilities: fast attack vessels, heavy weapons platforms, electronic warfare specialists, and close combat specialists like the ship she was standing on. The Hegemony Reinforcement Fleet approached in traditional formation, massive battleships surrounded by escort vessels in neat, predictable patterns. It was exactly how civilized species fought wars: orderly, logical, efficient. It was also exactly what human predators had evolved to exploit. The Ghost Fleet struck like wolves attacking a herd. Fast attack ships harassed the outer edges, forcing the aliens to break formation. Electronic warfare vessels jammed communications and disabled targeting systems. Close combat ships used the confusion to get within range of the heavy battleships. But the real killing blow came from Earth itself. Hidden installations on the planets. Surface opened portals that seemed to tear holes in space itself. Through those holes came weapons that violated several laws of physics. Gravitational pulse generators that could crush ships like tin cans. Temporal distortion fields that aged enemy vessels to dust in seconds. Reality warping devices that turned sections of space inside. The Hegemony Reinforcement Fleet lasted 18 minutes. Maria stood among the wreckage of the flagship's navigation chamber and watched the destruction through her enhanced senses. 4,000 alien ships reduced to drifting debris in less than 20 minutes. This was what happened when humanity stopped pretending to be civilized. Her communication implants crackled with a new transmission. This one came from deep space. Fro General Sarah Chen stood in the command center that had once been hidden deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Now the mountain was gone, replaced by a crystalline structure that reached toward the stars. Nanobots had rebuilt the entire facility in 3 days, creating something that was part fortress, part weapons platform, and part monument to human ingenuity turned toward destruction. Through the transparent walls, she could see Earth as it had become. The planet's surface crawled with metallic structures that pulsed with inner light. Manufacturing complexes the size of continents churned out ships, weapons, and creatures that had never existed before. The atmosphere itself had been modified, filled with microscopic machines that could identify and eliminate any non-human life form in seconds. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a weapon of galactic proportions. "General, we have confirmation from the Hegemony Home Systems," Admiral Torres reported. Her image appeared on a holographic display, transmitted from the bridge of humanity's newest flagship. The vessel had been built around the core of a captured alien dreadnought, but every system had been replaced with human technology that pushed the boundaries of what was physically possible. "All 6 hegemony species have formally surrendered," Torres continued. "Total time from first contact to complete capitulation, 47 days. Sarah nodded but felt no satisfaction. Victory had come too easily once the beasts were unleashed. The hegemony had been unprepared for an enemy that fought without limits, without mercy, without any concept of acceptable losses. "What about the other galactic powers?" Sarah asked, running scared. "The Corvan Federation has closed its borders and declared neutrality. The Sisterhood of Worlds is requesting immediate diplomatic contact. 3 minor empires have already offered to surrender preemptively." Sarah walked to the strategic display that showed the local galactic region. Red markers indicated former hegemony territory now under human control. Yellow markers showed neutral systems. Green markers showed potential allies who wanted protection from humanity's new military might. The transformation had been swift and absolute. In 47 days, humanity had gone from a species facing extinction to the dominant military power in this part of the galaxy. The cost had been the complete abandonment of everything that made them human. "Ma'am, incoming priority transmission from Captain Santos," Lieutenant Martinez announced. Sarah accepted the transmission. Maria Santos appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from somewhere in the Karathi home system. She still looked human at first glance, but the modifications were becoming more pronounced. Her eyes glowed brighter now. Her movements carried a predatory grace that made normal humans instinctively afraid. "General, we have secured the Karathi homeworld," Maria reported. "All military installations destroyed. Population centers secured. No resistance encountered. Casualties? None on our side." Karathi military losses were total. Sarah understood what Maria was not saying. The Wraith units had not just defeated the Karathi military. They had hunted down every soldier, every officer, every individual connected to the hegemony war machine. They had done so with an efficiency that was both admirable and terrifying. "What about civilian populations?" "Unharmed, as ordered." "But General," Maria paused, "we are having difficulty integrating with normal human forces. The psychological modifications appear to be progressive. We think differently now, react differently. Some of the team leaders are requesting permission to continue operating independently." Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. This was the fear that had kept the Pandora facility sealed for 40 years. The weapons they had created to save humanity might ultimately replace it. "Maintain current operational parameters," Sarah ordered. "We will address integration issues after the immediate crisis is resolved." The transmission ended, but Maria's words echoed in Sarah's mind. The Wraith units were becoming something beyond human control. They retained human intelligence and loyalty, but their enhanced physiology was changing how they thought and felt. They were evolving into perfect predators, and perfect predators did not take orders from prey species. "General, we have another issue," Dr. Elena Vasquez announced. Her image appeared on a secondary screen, transmitted from one of the orbital research stations that had been built around Earth's moon. "The nanobots are exhibiting unexpected behavior patterns. Elaborate. They are continuing to evolve and replicate beyond their original programming. We designed them to stop reproduction after completing their assigned tasks. But they are interpreting threat elimination very broadly. They have begun modifying Earth's ecosystem without authorization." Elena's screen showed images of Earth's forests. The trees looked normal at first glance, but their leaves had a metallic sheen. Their roots connected to underground networks of crystalline structures. Everything organic was being integrated with nanotechnology. "The entire planet is becoming a single interconnected system," Elena continued. "A living weapon that could theoretically be deployed against any world in the galaxy. But General, we are losing the ability to control it." Sarah closed her eyes. They had unleashed forces that were beyond human comprehension, let alone human control. The nanobots were rewriting Earth's biosphere. The Wraith units were evolving into something superhuman. The AI systems they had activated to fight the hegemony were now making decisions without consulting their human creators. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from Hegemony High Command," Martinez announced. Sarah opened her eyes. "Display transmission." Admiral Kessitar appeared on the main screen. The Nexari leader looked exactly as cold and logical as always, but Sarah could see something else in her pale blue eyes. Something that might have been fear. "General Chen, I am transmitting the final surrender documents for your approval," Kessitar said. "All hegemony forces have been withdrawn from human space. All war reparations have been agreed to. We formally recognize humanity as the dominant military power in this galactic region, and in return, we request that humanity agree to limit its expansion to former hegemony territory. The other galactic powers are willing to acknowledge human supremacy if you agree not to extend your operations beyond the systems you have already conquered." Sarah studied the alien admiral. In 30 cycles of military service, Kessitar had overseen the cleansing of dozens of worlds. She had eliminated entire species without hesitation. Now she was begging humanity to show restraint. "You fear us," Sarah observed. "We fear what you have become," Kessitar replied. "In 47 days, you have demonstrated weapons capabilities that exceed our understanding of physics. You have deployed biological agents that target genetic patterns we did not know could be targeted. You have created soldiers that are no longer recognizable as your original species." The alien admiral paused. "Most frightening of all, you have shown that your species has no concept of too far when survival is at stake. Every other civilization we have encountered has limits they will not cross, lines they will not step over. Humanity appears to have no such restrictions." Sarah nodded slowly. Kester was correct. When faced with extinction, humans had chosen to become something worse than their enemies. They had opened every sealed laboratory, activated every banned weapon, removed every safety restriction that separated civilization from apocalypse. "We will consider your terms," Sarah said. "But understand this. Humanity will never again be defenseless. What you saw in the past 47 days was us being restrained. If you ever threaten our species again, you will discover what humans are capable of when we stop holding back entirely." The transmission ended. Sarah stood alone in her crystalline command center, looking out at a world that was no longer quite human. The nanobots had given Earth capabilities beyond imagination. The Wraith units had become living weapons of unmatched efficiency. The orbital installations could crack planets or tear holes in space itself. Humanity had saved itself by becoming the galaxy's worst nightmare. "General, message from the Global Council," Martinez announced. "They are asking for your assessment of post-war integration strategies." Sarah activated her communication array. Her image would appear before the surviving leaders of human civilization. People who had spent 3 years hiding in bunkers while their world burned. People who now had to decide what kind of species humanity would become. "This is General Chen reporting mission completion," she began. "The hegemony threat has been eliminated. Earth security has been guaranteed. Human expansion into galactic civilization can now proceed." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "However, the methods used to achieve victory have fundamentally changed our species. We have created weapons that cannot be uninvented. We have modified soldiers who cannot be unchanged. We have unleashed forces that may not accept human control indefinitely." Through her enhanced senses, Sarah could detect the microscopic machines that now filled every breath of air on Earth. She could feel the planet itself listening to her words through networks that connected every grain of soil. She could sense the Wraith units across the galaxy, hunting down the last remnants of hegemony resistance with inhuman efficiency. "The beasts are awake," she continued. "They have served their purpose. But they may not be